Your paycheck just landed. Right now, in this exact moment, you have more control over your future than you will have for the next 30 days. Not because of how much money you made, because of what you do in the next 10 seconds. Most people don't know this moment even exists. They just see a number go up and start living. Here's the strange part. Two people can earn the exact same salary, same job, same city, same bills. 5 years later, one of them has a growing savings account and no debt. The other is still living paycheck to paycheck, wondering where it all went. The difference usually isn't income. It's not even willpower. It's a routine. A specific order of steps, done automatically every single time money hits the account. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that routine is, why your brain fights you every step of the way, and which single step almost everyone gets backwards without realizing it. But let's start with what actually happens inside your brain on payday. When money arrives, your brain treats it like a reward, not a resource, a reward. Researchers call this the anticipation response, and it lights up the same reward pathways as food, or a win or good news. This feeling is not an accident. It's the reason payday feels good even before you've spent a single dollar. But that good feeling has a side effect. It makes your brain want to act on it immediately. This is where a psychologist named Richard Thaler comes in. Thaler studied something called mental accounting. It's the idea that your brain doesn't treat all money the same, even though money is money. A dollar from your paycheck feels different from a dollar you found in an old jacket. A dollar labeled bills feels different from a dollar labeled fun. The moment your paycheck lands, your brain starts mentally sorting it into buckets. And here's the catch. If you don't sort it on purpose, your brain sorts it for you. And it almost always puts too much into the spend now bucket. Why? Because of something called present bias. Your brain values a reward right now far more than the exact same reward next month. A dollar spent today feels bigger than a dollar saved for later, even though they're worth the same. This isn't a character flaw. It's wiring left over from a time when waiting for anything wasn't always safe. Food today mattered more than food next season. Your brain hasn't updated the software. It still treats later as less real than now. How what happens without a routine? You open your banking app, you see a bigger number. Your brain quietly upgrades what feels affordable. A slightly nicer dinner, a subscription you forgot to cancel, a you deserve this purchase. None of it feels reckless in the moment. Each choice feels small and reasonable on its own, but by the time the next payday arrives, the money is gone, and you can't quite explain where. Hoa Toner, this is the trap. Not one big bad decision, dozens of small, quiet ones, each one approved by a brain that's chasing a feeling, not a plan. And here's a number that might surprise you. Multiple national surveys have found that a majority of workers, even ones earning solid incomes, report living paycheck to paycheck. Not because they don't earn enough, because there's no system standing between the paycheck and the spending. That's what a payday routine actually is. It's not a budget you check once and forget. It's not a New Year's resolution. It's a short, repeatable sequence of steps you do every time money arrives, before your brain gets the chance to talk you out of it. Think of it like brushing your teeth. You don't decide every single morning whether it's worth the effort. You just do it because it's automatic. That's the goal here. Make good money decisions automatic, so you're not relying on willpower every single payday for the rest of your life. Me and I have, and we are walking through the exact order of this routine, step by step. And I want to warn you now, one of these steps, the one most people assume comes last, actually needs to come first. Getting the order wrong is the single biggest reason good intentions turn into empty accounts. Stick around, because that one step alone can be the difference between a growing net worth and starting over every single month. Step 1. Pay yourself first, before you see the money as spendable. This is the step almost everyone gets backwards. Most people pay their bills, spend on what they need, buy a few things they want, and then save whatever happens to be left over. The problem is simple. There's almost never anything left over. Not because people are bad with money, because spending naturally expands to fill whatever is available. This is sometimes called Parkinson's law. applied to money instead of time. Give yourself a week to finish a task. It takes a week. Give yourself a paycheck to spend. It gets spent. The fix is to reverse the order. The moment your paycheck arrives, before you do anything else, move a set amount into savings or investing. Even if it's a small percentage, even if it's automatic and you barely notice it. This single move takes advantage of something economists Richard Taylor and Shlomo Ben-Artzi discovered in a program called Save More Tomorrow. They found that when people committed to saving before they ever saw the money as spendable, their savings rates rose dramatically, far more than any amount of budgeting advice or willpower ever achieved. Why? Because you can't miss money you never saw as available in the first place. Out of sight really does mean out of mind, and out of your spending decisions. Never swear your woman on turn in 10 years from now, because every manual choice is a moment where your present biased brain gets a vote, and it will usually vote for right now. Step 2. Attack high interest debt next, before anything else moves. How many years in question worth sitting with for a second? Would you rather earn 8% on an investment or stop losing 24% on a credit card balance? They sound like different questions. They're actually the same question. Paying down high interest debt is one of the only guaranteed returns available to you. The stock market might average a solid return over decades, but it's never guaranteed year to year. Paying off a card charging you 20% interest is a guaranteed 20% return instantly, no risk involved. Dan Ariely, a behavioral economist who has spent years studying irrational financial decisions, found that people consistently underestimate how much high interest debt costs them over time. It's not intuitive. The minimum payment feels manageable, so the size of the actual problem stays hidden. Meanwhile, the balance quietly grows in the background, month after month, like a plant nobody's watering but somehow won't die. So after your automatic saving moves, the next dollars go toward the debt charging you the most interest. Not the smallest balance, not the one that feels most annoying. The one costing you the most money every single month it exists. Step 3. Cover your essential, non-negotiable bills. This one sounds obvious, but here's the psychological trap hiding inside it. Once savings and debt are handled, it's tempting to feel like the hard part is done and relax. That relaxed feeling is exactly when non-essential spending starts sneaking into the essential category. A want gets mentally reclassified as a need because the hard work already happened. Rent, utilities, insurance, minimum debt payments beyond what you already tackled in step 2. These get paid in full on time before anything else touches this money. This is also where mental accounting works in your favor instead of against you. If you physically or digitally separate this money the moment it arrives, maybe into a different account or a clearly labeled category, your brain stops seeing it as available. Researchers Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir studied how scarcity affects decision-making, and one of their key findings was that clear boundaries around money reduce the mental load of constantly deciding what's safe to spend. When the boundary is built into the system, you don't have to rely on remembering it every time you open your banking app. Quick pause here, because we're about a third of the way through this routine, and there's something worth noticing. Every step so far has one thing in common. None of them depend on you having more discipline than anyone else. They depend on the order money moves and how much of that order happens automatically instead of manually. That's the actual secret hiding inside this whole video. It was never about willpower. It's about designing a system so your future self doesn't need any. Step 4. Set aside a fixed amount for guilt-free spending on purpose. Here's where a lot of money advice goes wrong. It tells you to save everything and spend nothing extra ever. That approach fails almost every single time, and has a clear psychological reason why. Deprivation builds pressure, and pressure eventually breaks. This is very similar to what happens with extremely restrictive diets. Cut out every single treat completely, and eventually there's a binge, followed by guilt, followed by giving up on the whole system entirely. Normally, the fix isn't more restriction, it's a boundary. A specific, limited amount of money set aside on purpose that you are allowed to spend on whatever you want with zero guilt attached. This works because of that same mental accounting idea from Richard Taylor. When spending money comes from a clearly labeled fund bucket instead of a vague, undefined pool, your brain stops associating every purchase with anxiety. You already decided this money was for enjoying, so enjoying it isn't a failure. It's the plan working exactly as designed. This is also, quietly, the step that makes every other step sustainable. A routine that feels like punishment gets abandoned within a few months. A routine that includes planned enjoyment tends to actually last. The nose comes easier and decomplicates sensations, prompting melancholy. This is the step that ties the entire routine together. And it's also the most commonly skipped because it feels like extra effort upfront. It isn't, it's the opposite. Setting up automatic transfers for savings, automatic minimum debt payments, automatic bill pay, all scheduled for the same day your paycheck lands, means the entire system runs whether you're paying close attention or not. Remember present bias from earlier in this video? The bias that makes right now feel more important than later? Automation is basically a workaround for your own brain. It removes the moment of decision entirely. There's no instant where you have to choose the responsible option over the tempting one, because the responsible option already happened before you even opened the app. This is precisely why the Save More Tomorrow program worked so well. It didn't ask people to be more disciplined, it removed the need for discipline altogether. Step 6. Do a 60-second check-in, not a full audit. This last step is short on purpose. A full deep dive into your finances every single payday is exhausting, and exhausting systems get abandoned. Instead, this is a quick glance. Did the transfers happen? Does anything look unusual? Is there a subscription that quietly renewed that you forgot about? 60 seconds. That's genuinely it. The goal isn't a deep financial review every 2 weeks. The goal is staying lightly aware without turning payday into a stressful chore you start dreading. Now, here's the twist. The part that reframes everything you just heard. The order we walk through: save first, debt second, bills third, guilt-free spending fourth, automate fifth, check-in sixth. It works specifically because it removes decisions, not because any single step is complicated. None of these steps are hard on their own. Anyone could figure out that saving is good, or that high-interest debt is expensive. The reason most people still don't do it consistently isn't a lack of information. It's that they're relying on remembering to make the right choice over and over, forever, every single payday for their entire working life. That's not a plan, that's a bet against your own future exhaustion, and exhaustion always wins eventually. There's research that backs this up in a slightly uncomfortable way. Studies on decision fatigue show that the more choices a person has to make in a day, the worse those choices tend to get, especially later in the day. Judges have been shown to make harsher rulings before lunch than right after, purely because of mental fatigue building up. Your money decisions are no different. If payday requires 10 separate willpower-based choices, you will eventually make a worse one, not because you're careless, but because you're human, and humans run out of decision-making energy just like they run out of physical energy. This is why the routine matters more than the amount. Someone saving a modest amount through an automatic system, done the same way every single payday, will very likely end up ahead of someone saving a larger amount inconsistently whenever they happen to remember, whenever it happens to feel convenient. Consistency compounds, good intentions don't. Let's bring this back to something researcher Brad Klontz calls money scripts. These are the unconscious beliefs about money most people picked up in childhood, often without ever noticing it happened. Some people grew up believing money should be spent quickly because it might not last. Others grew up believing money should never be enjoyed, only hoarded out of fear. Neither belief was chosen on purpose. Both were absorbed quietly from watching the adults around you handle money or not handle it for years. Here's why this matters for the routine we just walked through. A system built on automation doesn't require you to fix every inherited belief about money before it works. It just requires the transfers to happen. You can still be working through old money anxiety, old scarcity fears, old habits picked up from watching your parents stress over bills, and the automated system keeps running in the background regardless. It buys you time and stability while your relationship with money slowly gets healthier. instead of demanding the healing happen first. Let's connect this to right now, to your actual next paycheck. When it lands and you open the app and you see that number, notice the feeling, that little rush. That's your brain treating it as a reward, exactly like we talked about earlier. That feeling is not wrong or bad, it's just not built for long-term decisions, it's built for right now. The routine exists specifically to protect your future from that very real, very human, very understandable pull toward right now. So here's what this actually looks like on your next payday. The money lands. Before you check anything else, the savings transfer already happened automatically. The extra debt payment already went out. The bills are already covered. There's a specific guilt-free amount sitting there waiting for you to actually enjoy it, because you built that into the plan on purpose. And the whole thing took you about 60 seconds of attention, because the hard part happened once, when you set it up, not every single time money arrives. That's the entire shift. Not more money, not more willpower, not some dramatic overnight transformation, just an order of operations, done automatically every single time, so your future doesn't depend on how strong your willpower happens to feel on any particular Friday afternoon. Go back to the very beginning of this video for a second. Your paycheck just landed. You have more control over your future than you have for the next 30 days. Not because of how much you made, but because of what happens in the next 10 seconds. Now you know exactly what those 10 seconds should look like. The only real question left is whether you let your brain decide what happens next, or whether the system you just built will decide for you.